Mystery of the Benin Bronze. An unusual discovery was made by archaeologists in Nigeria. Scientists have discovered that African craftsmen made Benin bronze from German ore. The Benin bronze is a large collection of 3,000 brass figurines found in Nigeria in 1897. British soldiers captured them and took them to Britain. For a long time, scientists thought that the figurines were made from melted down rings that were used as money in the slave trade. But a recent study showed that most of the figurines are made from ore found in Germany, in the Rhineland. African metal workers made figurines in the 16th and 19th centuries. Scientists analyzed the metal rings that Europeans traded for gold, ivory, and slaves in Africa. The researchers compared these rings and the Benin bronze and found that they were made from the same ore. This discovery has helped scholars better understand the history of the slave trade and learn more about how Europeans influenced African art. Now the largest collection of Benin bronzes is in the British Museum in London. Nigeria asks to return these works of art back to their homeland. Now let's think together whether European museums will return ancient artifacts back to Africa. You can write your opinion in the comments below the video. Sacrifice in Germany. Fertility rites were performed in Germany 4,800 years ago, and today we already know that they sacrificed. In Halberstadt, archaeologists found a well with the skeletons of various animals, bulls, dogs, and hares. This happened a long time ago, at a time when people lived among nature and appreciated it. They wanted the land to be fertile, they loved everything that surrounded them, and most importantly, they believed that if animals were sacrificed, the gods would help them and the harvest would be good. The well belonged to an ancient culture that originated in the lands of modern Poland and then moved to Germany. Scientists think that people dug a well specifically for these rites. First, the bones of 4 bulls were found in the well, and then whole skeletons, a dog, hares, and another bull. This suggests that people already knew how to breed animals. Hares, which were also sacrificed, are considered very prolific. Hares and rabbits can produce offspring several times a year. This once again confirms that the well was used for fertility rites. Next to the well, archaeologists found a stone tomb. Perhaps someone important from this ancient society was buried there. Mystery of the Etruscan tomb. A new discovery awaits us in Italy. In its central part in the city of Volci, scientists discovered a unique Etruscan tomb of the 6th century BC, which remained untouched for a long time. Many ceramic vessels and a dish with a brazier were found in this tomb. During the excavation, scientists found 2 heavy stone slabs that covered the tomb. Behind them was a room carved into the rock where they found about 30 ceramic vessels in excellent condition. Also found in the tomb was a bronze brazier with coals and skewers on which pieces of meat remained. It is likely that a woman was buried here, as no weapons were found, but a spindle was found. The remains of the woman were burned and placed in a special pot, which the Etruscans used to store the ashes. The city of Volci was a thriving center of trade and crafts until it was destroyed by Rome in 280 BC. The city fell into decay and then was abandoned. Many tombs were plundered by marauders in search of precious items. Therefore, finding an untouched tomb is a real rarity. The secret of the Areolas. The ancient Greeks took care of their health and were actively involved in sports. Their faithful assistants in this matter were areoboli, small spherical vessels with a narrow neck. They were inserted into leather pouches that were attached to the wrists to carry them around. Athletes used areobolas to always have aromatic oils on hand. They rubbed their bodies with these oils before training and competitions and then scraped them off their skin along with their dirt with a special scraper. Oils were also used in the bath. Areobolas were handy and compact, made from clay and other materials such as faience, bronze, and glass. Women also had their own vessels, alabasters, which served to store aromatic oils and liquids. Unlike men, women preferred more ingenious forms, such as animals or sculpted heads that could stand upright on a flat surface. The mystery of Roman coins on Pirate Island. On a mysterious uninhabited island in the Baltic Sea, archaeologists have found 2 silver coins from the time of the Roman Empire. Scientists are quite puzzled as to how the coins ended up on an island between Sweden and Estonia. Nobody knows exactly how the coins got there. Perhaps this is the case of Scandinavian traders, a shipwreck, or a Roman ship wandering north. The coins found are Roman denarius. One was minted during the time of Emperor Trajan, the other during the time of Antonius Pius. They were standard coins in Rome, and their name is preserved in some Latin languages such as dinero in Italian and dinero in Spanish. Roman coins have always been valuable because of the silver they are made from. The coins may have been brought by Norwegian traders, shipwreck survivors, or by Romans on a ship, although no such records have been found. Gotska Sandon, the sandy island, is one of the most remote in the Baltic Sea. Roman coins have also been found on the larger island of Gotland. In the past, Gotska Sandon served as a pirate haven and a lighthouse island, as well as a seal hunting ground. The coin finds corroborate the 19th century lighthouse keeper's stories of finding a Roman coin on the island. Scientists hope to unravel the mystery and reconstruct the history of the island, although it is likely that this mystery will never be fully solved. Monastery in Sudan decorated with Christian frescoes. Archaeologists from Poland have discovered a mysterious complex of rooms with Christian frescoes in the medieval monastery of Old Angola in Africa. This city was the capital of Makuria, one of the famous African states which became Christian in the 6th century. Scientists studied houses of the 16th, 19th centuries and accidentally found a church with beautiful frescoes and inscriptions in Greek and Old Nubian. On one of the houses, they found a secret passage leading to a room with amazing frescoes on the walls. On the walls were depicted the Mother of God, Christ, the Archangel Michael, and the Nubian ruler. The peculiarity of this picture is that the ruler bows and kisses the hand of Christ, and the Archangel Michael protects them with his wings. Such a scene has no parallel in Nubian painting. Another unusual fresco is the image of the Mother of God, dressed in dark clothes, holding a cross and a book. Christ on the opposite wall also holds a book and gives a blessing. Interest in history of ancient African civilizations and cultures is growing, and finds such as this one are becoming a kind of key to understanding the past of this continent. Now scientists want to find out for what purposes these mysterious rooms were used and how exactly they were connected with the life of people of that time. Perhaps in the future, archaeologists will be able to discover even more secrets and mysteries associated with this amazing complex in Old Angola and other African states. It is important to preserve these finds and continue to study history and culture in order to pass on knowledge of ancient civilizations to future generations. That's what our channel is for, to which I recommend subscribing and clicking on the bell so as not to miss a new video. Ancient temple at the bottom of the sea. In Italy, off the coast of Pozzuoli and the Phlegrean Peninsula, archaeologists have discovered the ruins of an ancient Nabatean temple at the bottom of the sea. The Nabatean kingdom was an ally of Rome. They ruled vast territories and important trade routes. The ancient city of Pozzuoli, formerly Puteoli, was a center for the export of goods from Campania. The Nabateans settled there, built warehouses, shops, and a wholesale base. Perhaps they also built the sanctuary found today by underwater archaeologists. The temple was dedicated to the god Zeus. Archaeologists have found 2 marble altars from the beginning of the 1st century AD. This discovery was the key to unraveling a long-standing mystery. Scientists knew that foreigners lived in Puteoli and were engaged in trade. The area where they lived was called Vicus Latinianus, but its exact location was unknown. The found temple allowed archaeologists to determine its location. Underwater exploration also unearthed the ancient roads and remains of administrative buildings. Scientists believe that part of the city went underwater thousands of years ago due to volcanic activity. This discovery brought light to the history of this ancient region and its inhabitants. Ancient Mayan football scoreboard. In Mexico, at Chichen Itza on the Yucatan Peninsula, archaeologists have found a stone disc depicting 2 people playing Tilatli, an ancient game popular in the region. This disc, weighing more than 40 kilograms, was used as a scoreboard to record the results of matches. Tilatli, Mesoamerican ball game, was common among the people of Mesoamerica before the arrival of Columbus. The game were held as ritual events and were sometimes accompanied by sacrifices, but were more often played for entertainment. It is difficult to disagree that archaeologists consider Tilakli to be the ancestor of modern football. Researchers estimate the age of the plate at 1,200 years. Archaeologist Francisco Zoria Leon says such finds are very rare. Iconographic experts have identified two central players, one wearing a feather headdress and the other, his opponent, wearing a serpent turban, an outfit typical of pelota players, another ancient ballgame estimated to be 3,000 years old. Metal Man. Back in 1719, in the usual mining town of Falun in Sweden, everything went on as usual, until the miners who came on shift stumbled upon a strange find. It was a human body. The young man looked as if he had just died. In general, corpses are a common part of life. They do not surprise anyone. But this dead man seemed to be both flesh and metal. It was as if every millimeter of his body had been treated with something and applied the thinnest layer of metal. This was beyond the power of even a skilled craftsman, because every single hair in his body was covered with metal. The management of the mine did not know what to do with the unusual find. The corpse was exhibited in a local museum, whose visitors took the unusual exhibit as a miracle, believing that the man was metal during his lifetime, almost like a Tin Woodman or Terminator. One day, the grandchildren brought an elderly lady to the museum. She stood in front of the exhibit for a while, clutching her chest, because she recognized her fiancé Mats Israelsson in the find. It's been about 40 years since they last met. The guy was in a hurry to go on a date with the bride, but he never showed up at her place. They searched for Mats for some time. Gradually, the parents calmed down and reconciled. Friends forgot about him. The girl married another guy. Probably on the way, he met criminals who killed him and threw the corpse into the mine. The deceased should have been buried, but the local authorities realized that they could make money on it. There were a huge number of people wishing to visit the museum, and tourists came from neighboring countries. As they say, money has no smell, but the exhibit kinda does. Under the action of air, the metal layer began to thin and evaporate, and the organic matter started simply decomposing. In 1749, the body was buried, but after 10 years, they dug it up again and returned it to its original place. Only in the 30s was he finally buried forever, leaving a wax copy in the museum. But it turns out that the victim of an accidental murder is not the only such case. There were other finds which were a combination of organic matter and metal. In science, this phenomenon is known as pseudomorphism. This is such an effect when one minerals replace others with the preservation of external forms. It is problematic to reproduce it in the laboratory. It is too expensive, time-consuming, and pointless. The case with Mats went down in history precisely because of the scale of the process that engulfed the whole human body and not the remains of a small animal, insect, or shell. 1,600-year-old women's sandals. Archaeologists in Turkey have discovered an amazing find: women's sandals and a wooden comb, which are approximately 1,600 years old. It is reported that on the sole of the sandals there is an inscription in Greek: "Use these, ladies, wear them for beauty and happiness." Artifacts were found on the territory of the ancient port of Theodosius, founded on the coast of the Sea of Marmara at the end of the 4th century AD. During Byzantine times, the port was considered one of the important harbors of Constantinople. Today, Theodosius is located in one of the districts of Istanbul, where archaeological excavations are carried out. Scientists believe that the sandals and the comb were kept in good condition due to the lack of oxygen in the soil, since the ancient port was covered with a thick layer of sand. This unique find allows you to learn more about the life of people in those days and about the fashion that was popular among women. Ancient bridge in England. In England, there is an amazing wooden bridge from the Neolithic period. It is almost 6,000 years old. It's a trail called the Sweet Track that cuts through swampy terrain in the Somerset Levels. It is named after Ray Sweet, who discovered it in 1970. The dating accuracy was determined by the Denver chronology method. Sweet Track was created as a shortcut through the swamp. It was actively used for 10 years, but then it was abandoned, possibly due to rising water levels. Items found along the trail include stone axes, arrows, the remains of a dish, parts of bows, bone hooks, and a fragment of a spoon. The road is about 1.8 kilometers long and connected two Neolithic settlements on opposite sides of the swamp. Today, the Sweet Track is considered to be the oldest known road in England. Surprisingly, the manufacturing technology of such wooden rides has not changed much over the past millennia. This unique find allows you to learn more about the life of people in the Neolithic era and their methods of transportation. The most ancient bats. Scientists have discovered amazing finds in Wyoming, USA. 2 fossilized skeletons of bats, which are already 52 million years old. This is the first time such old skeletons have been discovered, and they belong to a previously unknown species of bat. These small creatures were slightly smaller than their modern relatives and could easily fit in the palm of a person. Scientists compared the fossils with other species and determined that they belong to a new species, which was named Icaro ganali. Scientific research is ongoing, and scientists believe that these bats evolved independently from other species that lived during the Eocene era. They are studying the diversity of ancient bats to figure out their evolutionary adaptations and find clues as to who might have been their common ancestor. Ancient chariots in China. A long time ago, in China, archaeologists found an amazing treasure: 5 ancient chariots with horses and 7 graves with people under them. It was a burial place around the 1st millennium BC at the end of the Bronze Age. Horses were very important animals for the people of that time, and they used them to move quickly and make connections with other cultures. All horses were adult males between 9 and 12 years old and were used in chariots as draft animals. Perhaps they were trained for chariot riding from a young age. When horses were in their prime, they were buried with dead people as a ritual. This amazing find helps us learn more about ancient cultures and their attitude towards horses and chariots. But not only did archaeologists do this, they also found evidence that horses were used in funerary rituals with or without chariots, which became especially during the Zhou era, 11th to 3rd centuries BC. During excavations at the Shijie archaeological site in Gansu province, scientists found a pit with chariots and horses. They dated this object to the 7th-6th centuries BC. How Catholics tried the dead. Once a strange and terrible event happened in the history of the Catholic Church. Pope Stephen VI decided to hold a trial against his predecessor, Pope Formosus. But there was one problem. Formosus had already died and been buried for a year. Incredible, but Stephen VI nevertheless decided on this. He ordered Formosus' body to be taken from the grave, dressed in papal robes, and placed on a throne in one of the most famous churches in Rome. And then began the trial, which became known as the Cadaver Synod, or Trial of the Dead. Since Formosus naturally couldn't speak and defend himself, a man sat behind him who pretended to be his voice. As a result, the dead pope was accused of all sins and punished. They cut off the fingers on his right hand, dragged his body on a horse across Rome, and threw it into the river. I want to remind you that all this happened to an already dead person, but Pope Stephen VI could not long rejoice at such an outcome. People were outraged by such a terrible action, and soon a rebellion began. Stephen was sent to prison, where he was eventually killed. Subsequently, another pope, John IX, forbade trying the dead so that this would never happen again. And the body of Formosus was found by the monks, and he was buried again, already with due respect, in St. Peter's Cathedral. So even the most important people in history can sometimes do terrible and strange things. Write your opinion in the comments. Don't you think that there are too many terrible scandals associated with the Catholic Church in their entire history? And what could be the reason for this? The find more valuable than gold and silver. Amazing finds are sometimes found in ancient Egyptian tombs, standing on a par with gold and silver. One such example is the work chest with tools found in the tomb of the carpenter Ankef, located in a necropolis near Asyut in central Egypt. On the box was an inscription dedicated to Anubis, the lord of Kerere, and an indication of the name of Ankef. On the side of the chest was also a list of the tools that should have been contained inside: 6 axes, 6 adzes, 6 chisels, and 6 other tools with copper plates, possibly saws. However, the contents of the box turned out to be different: 7 axes, 5 chisels, and no saws. The contradiction between the list and the contents is explained by the fact that the entire chest and tools are only models. The box is 18 cm long, while the miniature axes are only 15 cm long. These are symbolic tools intended for use only in the world of the dead, where Ankef continued to work as a carpenter for his great master, Nebuchadnezzar, the pharaoh of Egypt. Much more important than the contents of the chest itself was the inscription on its side, which served as a kind of spell. The find dates from the Middle Kingdom, approximately 1981-1802 BC. The material of the box is limestone wood covered with a layer of lime. This exhibit is now in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, serving as an example of amazing artifacts that testify to the beliefs and customs of the ancient Egyptians. Mummy's hand with a coin. A child's mummified hand holding a copper coin is a unique find that has puzzled scientists and opened up new horizons for research of mummification and the use of copper as an antimicrobial agent. Discovered in 2005 in an abandoned cemetery in Nyarlarinka, Hungary, this find has aroused wide interest among specialists. An analysis by a team of researchers found that copper contaminated on the infant's body contributed to soft tissue preservation. This was the first recorded case of copper-induced mummification. Scholars were also interested in the fact that the coin was in circulation in the middle of the 19th century, although the burial took place in a cemetery abandoned many years earlier. Such a find was an example of a unique case of mummification using copper, which may attract the attention of researchers and archaeologists in the future. This discovery provides an opportunity to expand our knowledge of ancient civilizations, their traditions and customs, as well as the use of various materials and methods to preserve the dead. Scientists have to study more cases like this to understand how copper and other materials were used in mummification, and what were the beliefs and practices of ancient cultures associated with this process. Grave of the Mysterious Surgeon. In Hungary, archaeologists have discovered a tomb of a mysterious man dating back to the 1st century AD, in which a set of high-quality surgical instruments was found. This discovery was made near the town of Jesberen, located in the center of the country, where researchers initially excavated in search of artifacts from the Copper Age. With the help of magnetometric surveys, archaeologists were able to discover a long-abandoned cemetery of the 6th-9th centuries AD, and began to excavate several rows of graves. One of the graves turned out to be older than the others and dates back to the 1st century AD. This burial was shallow and contained the remains of a man who died between the ages of 50 and 60. The researchers were surprised by the presence of metal instruments in the grave, which they were able to identify as Roman surgical instruments. The tools were hidden in 2 wooden chests buried at the feet of the deceased. Scientists note that the tools found had a very high-quality workmanship. The set featured tools such as tweezers, scalpels, needles, and even the ancient pliers. They were made of copper alloy, decorated with silver inlay, and had removable, replaceable steel blades. A small stone mortar was also found in the grave. The wear on its surface indicates that it was often used, possibly for making medicines. Such medical kits are extremely rare in the ancient Roman world, and this may be the first such find made on the outskirts of the Roman Empire. Who the buried man was, one can only guess, as well as about the cause of his death. Analysis of the bones revealed no visible signs of injury or disease. In the grave itself, there were no things or objects that could reliably indicate the origin of this person. Therefore, scientists did not know whether this ancient surgeon was a local resident or he came here from afar. However, it is planned to conduct a DNA analysis which may help to solve this mystery. Archaeologists also note that such a medical kit at that time was extremely expensive. Only a very wealthy person could afford to buy it. The presence of such a set may indicate the high status of the deceased and his professional skills. Perhaps he was one of the best surgeons of his time, and his knowledge and experience were very valuable. Ritual mask in Japan. Archaeologists have discovered a unique wooden mask from the 3rd century in the ruins of Nishiwata, Osaka Prefecture, Japan. Researchers believe that the mask was used in ceremonial rituals during agricultural festivals around 1,800 years ago during the Yayoi era. This find is one of 3 wooden masks found from this period. The mask, carved from cedar, measures 30 centimeters high and 18 centimeters wide, with holes for the eyes and mouth and holes in the sides for ties. It was found at a depth of 3 meters, next to a wooden bucket for water and a burn tool that looked like a mattock. These items may have been used in agricultural festivals. During the Yayoi era, the Japanese transitioned to a sedentary agricultural society and used farming techniques brought over from Korea. The mask, according to Kaworu Terasawa, director of the Makimukugaku Research Center, may have been purely a festive ritual attribute as it's too heavy to wear. Terasawa added that the mask may have been a hat spirit representing the power of Okimi, the title of ruler of the Yamato Kingdom. Ruins of a luxury winery. Archaeologists have discovered an ancient 2,000-year-old winery at the Villa Quintilius, located by the road, the famous Via Appia. They believe that it was an imperial winery, where guests were not only treated to wine but also entertained. The villa is located near Rome. Previously, it belonged to the wealthy Quintilian family, but then became the imperial property. The villa is known for its beautiful architecture, thermae, and even the arena for chariot races and gladiator fights. In 2017-2018, archaeologists discovered traces of a winery near the arena. It was built or expanded during the reign of Emperor Gordian III. The winery had an area for squeezing grapes, vats for settling the worts, and a wine cellar with clay amphoras for storing wine. The winery was very luxurious. The floors and stairs were lined with expensive marble from different countries. Spectacles were staged here for guests, who rested in luxurious halls around the courtyard of the winery. Archaeologists believe that this winery complex offered guests not only delicious wine, but also wonderful entertainment in the form of theatrical performances. The Soap Lady of Philadelphia. In 1875, in Philadelphia, during work on the improvement of an old cemetery, two strange bodies were discovered, man and woman who did not look like the dead usually look. Instead, their bodies turned into soap people due to the process of saponification. This process occurs when the fatty tissue of the body, under the influence of certain conditions, such as alkaline soil and certain enzymes, turns into a waxy substance that resembles soap. The scientific term for this body condition is adiposiris. After their discovery, the remains became part of museum exhibits. In the 1990s, the man's body was removed from the exhibition for detailed study. X-ray studies showed the presence of pins in the tissues used to fix the burial shroud. Studies also showed that the man was a European who passed away at the age of 40-50 and was engaged in physical labor. The woman's body was also studied. Pins were also found in it, and blonde curls were preserved on the skull. Her skeleton was strong, indicative of good health, but her teeth were almost completely missing. Currently, the body of a man is in the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History and the body of a woman in the Mata Museum in Philadelphia. Cases of saponification are rare, but they testify to how unique the processes that occur with the remains of a person after death can be. Due to the large amount of adipose tissue, their bodies were able to remain in good condition for many years. The study of such rare cases as the soap couple allows scientists to better understand the processes that occur in the human body after death, as well as expand our knowledge of the history and culture of different eras. The first images of the inhabitants of the legendary Tartisus. Archaeologists from Spain are exploring the ancient town of Casas de Turinoala and have found unique stone busts of the ancient Iberian civilization of Tartisus. These are the first depictions of the Tartessians seen by the modern world. Tartisus was an ancient city in southern Spain. The Tartessians were engaged in trade and mining of metals. This civilization is considered one of the oldest in Western Europe. Tartessian culture was a mixture of local Spanish and Phoenician traditions. The people of Tartisus were skilled metallurgists and knew how to work with metals. The newly found stone busts have beautiful faces, ornaments, and hairstyles reminiscent of ancient sculptures from the Middle East and Asia. We know very little about the Tartessians, and their history is full of secrets. Their city of Tartisus was on the Guadalquivir River in Spain. The Greek historian Ephor described Tartisus as a flourishing civilization engaged in the production and trade of metals. Archaeologists do not know for sure who the Tartessians were, an indigenous population with Eastern influence or a Phoenician colony. Scientists think that the busts found depict the gods of the Tartessians, although it was previously believed that their religion did not use images of gods. The sculptures were found on the site of an ancient temple. Perhaps they were part of a stone fresco with deities and a Tartessian warrior. Curse of the Tomb of the Polish King. I will tell you about one mysterious story related to the Jagiellonian curse. You probably know that Casimir IV Jagiellonian was a very successful king of Poland. He made his dynasty one of the most important in Europe and even won access to the sea. When Casimir died, his wife Elizabeth of Habsburg commissioned a stunning tomb for him. It was a real masterpiece, decorated with coats of arms and biblical scenes. When the queen also died, she was buried next to her husband. In 1973, they decided to open this tomb in order to carry out restoration. However, after work on the tomb, 10 out of 12 people who participated in the restoration died. This caused rumors about the Jagiellonian curse, that touching the tomb leads to death. But you know what? Scientists have found an explanation for this. There was a dangerous fungus in the tomb that causes serious diseases. This fungus usually lives on dead bodies, and when people opened the tomb, they inhaled its toxic spores. There is speculation that this fungus also lives on ancient Egyptian mummies. Maybe the workers who opened the tombs of the pharaohs also suffered from the curse of the mummy because of this fungus. But this is only a theory, since there is no direct evidence of a link between the fungus and death. As a result, the fungus could become a real curse of the Jagiellonians and Egyptian mummies. Although this is not mysticism, it still sounds mysterious and interesting, right? So even today, passing by ancient tombs and mummies, remember this mysterious story and be careful. The first calculator from the 17th century. Did you know that Blaise Pascal was not only a brilliant mathematician, but also invented amazing things? Here is one of his stories that will show you how talent and adventurism can work together to create something unique. In the 17th century, Pascal embodied his idea in the form of the first arithmetic adding machine, which was called Pascaline. It was already the second calculating machine, but the first one that was actually built and used. So how did it all start? Blaise Pascal was inspired by his father, who worked with taxes and faced financial problems and charges of treason. Then the young Pascal came up with the idea to create a mechanism that would facilitate the calculation of tax collections. After all, then everyone did the calculations on the counting boards. In 1642, when Blaise was 19 years old, he took on the project. A couple of years later, and after much revision and research, he created a machine that looked like a shoebox with dials on top, gears and windows to display calculations. Unfortunately, Pascaline could only add numbers, since the gears could only rotate in one direction. But using a clever 9's complement math trick allowed to subtract numbers. Although the device was not simple inside, the Pascaline caused delight among people, since this level of automatism had not existed until then. Blaise Pascal later made about 50 of these machines and sold about 20 of them. The introduction of these machines was hampered by their high costs and complexity of production. Plus, France only in 1799 switched to the metric system in monetary calculations. So, thanks to the courage and ingenuity of Blaise, the Pascaline was created, a calculating machine that greatly facilitated calculations and became the forerunner of modern calculators. As you can see, sometimes unusual ideas and adventurism can lead to the discovery and creation of unique things that change the world. Remember this story the next time you hear about some weird invention, because it could be something truly great. Ancient Towers of China. In the foothills of the Himalayas, there are amazing stone towers. Some of them are used by local residents as stables and barns, while others are simply abandoned. They started talking about the towers only in 1998, when the French researcher Frédéric Daragon drew attention to them. Frédéric studied these mysterious towers for 5 whole years. She sought information about them from local residents and Buddhist monasteries, but found nothing. As a result, she found references to the towers in Chinese chronicles and records of European travelers of the 19th century. It turns out that the foothills of the Himalayas have long been inhabited by tribes who lived in isolation from each other. Their languages and dialects developed separately, so the history of the towers may have been forgotten. Himalayan towers are unique in their strength. They withstand earthquakes thanks to a mixture of stone, brick, and wood. The towers have different shapes: square, polygonal, and even star-shaped with 12 peaks. They are 600, 1000 years old, and some are even older. Frederick suggested that some of the towers served as a symbol of wealth. The inhabitants of the wealthy villages that traded with China could build them as a demonstration of their wealth. Other towers may have been watchtowers, as they stand near trade routes and the entrance to them is at a height of several meters. Double hoard with Viking treasures. Archaeologists have found in Denmark a stunning treasure of ancient silver coins and jewelry, which reveals the secrets about the life of the famous Viking king Harald Bluetooth. This treasure was found on the Jutland Peninsula, not far from the ancient ring forts built by Harald himself around 980. In total, about 300 silver items were found, including 50 coins and jewelry. It turned out that these treasures were hidden in two different places under buildings that no longer exist. Archaeologists thought that the person who buried the treasure deliberately divided it into parts, so as not to lose everything at once. By the way, the treasure was discovered by a woman with a metal detector. Most of the items found are chopped silver or hack silver. These are pieces of silver jewelry that could be weighed and sold. But among the treasure, there were also silver coins from Arab and German countries, as well as from Denmark. Of particular interest are Danish coins with a cross, which were minted during the reign of Harald Bluetooth. Harald was one of the first Viking kings to convert to Christianity, and with this new faith, he wanted to unite the warring Viking tribes in Denmark. No one knows for sure why he got the nickname Bluetooth. Perhaps he had a bad tooth that was blue-black. This name is still known today, as it gave its name to the Bluetooth wireless communication standard. Harald unified Denmark and even ruled part of Norway. He was king until his death in 985 or 986, when he was succeeded on the throne by his son Sweyn Forkbeard. Astronomical Compendium of 1550. Here's an interesting fact from archaeology. Once upon a time, there were such devices as astronomical compendiums. These were small tools for complex calculations packed in one box. Astronomical compendiums cost a lot and were a sign of the wealth of their owner. One such compendium, made around 1550 in Augsburg, is made of gilded brass. Such a compendium included many tools, including a passage instrument for determining the time at night from the stars, lists of latitudes, a magnetic compass, a list of ports and harbors, a perpetual calendar, and a lunar indicator. With the help of the astronomical compendium, it was possible to find out the current time, the height of the tide in ports, and perform calendar calculations. All this was so amazing and useful that today it is even difficult to imagine how such complex functions fit in such a small device. Strength of ancient Roman concrete. The ancient Romans were true masters of construction. They built many roads, aqueducts, ports, and huge buildings. Many of these structures are still standing, although several millennia have passed. Scientists have unraveled the secret of this stability: Roman concrete. It was used in the construction of the famous Pantheon and many other buildings. The peculiarity of this concrete is volcanic ash, which was mined in the area of the Gulf of Naples. Roman builders actively used these ashes in their building projects. Scientists from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology studied ancient concrete and found white mineral elements in it, lime. These small particles gave concrete a unique ability to self-heal. When cracks appeared in concrete, it itself reacted with water and closed these cracks. Scientists believe that such a secret ingredient could help us make modern concrete stronger and more durable. This will help reduce the environmental impact of cement production, as it currently causes about 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So, thanks to the science and secrets of the ancient Romans, we will be able to create even more sustainable and environmentally friendly structures in the future. New symbols on the Stone of Destiny. The Stone of Destiny is a very old and mysterious seat that is over 800 years old. It was used during the coronation of King Charles III in London on 6 May. This stone is a sacred symbol of Scotland made of red sandstone. There is a cross on one side of the stone and rings on the other so that it can be moved. Scientists have been studying this stone for a long time, and most recently they discovered strange signs and anomalies on it that no one had noticed before. They found traces of copper alloy and gypsum plaster, which may indicate that the stone has some secret history that we do not yet know about. Scientists from the Scottish government conducted a laser scan of the stone and found markings similar to Roman numerals. However, it cannot be said for sure that these are Roman numerals. They also examined traces of copper alloy on the stone and found out that in the past, a copper or brass object was placed on the stone for a certain period of time, possibly some kind of sacred relic. Scientists also found gypsum plaster on the Stone of Destiny, which may indicate that a plaster cast of this artifact was made in the past. Such a cast is not mentioned in any records, and this came as a surprise to scientists. The Stone of Destiny was used at the coronation of Scottish kings in the 13th century and is now used at the coronation of British monarchs. It was stolen from Scotland in 1296 and returned only in the 20th century. As for its history before the 13th century, it remains a mystery. What happens to the documents of Leonardo da Vinci? Now I will tell you about the amazing discovery associated with the works of Leonardo da Vinci. It will be interesting. The Codex Atlanticus is a huge collection of drawings and writings made by Leonardo da Vinci himself. And now scientists from the Polytechnic University of Milan have recently tried to unravel the mystery of the black spots that appeared on one of the sheets of this code. Scientists used a bunch of cool methods to figure out where these spots came from and what caused them. At first, they thought that some microbes were to blame, but it turned out that it wasn't the case. Using super powerful instruments, they discovered that the stains were due to the adhesive used to restore the sheets in the past. Apparently, there were some tricky substances in the glue that ended up staining the paper, and scientists have found that one of the reasons for the appearance of stains could be air pollution in Milan, because there were a lot of harmful substances in the air a long time ago. Scientists continue research to preserve the creations of Leonardo da Vinci for future generations. And this is very cool, because this way we can learn even more about the past and about the talents of this great artist and scientist. Older than paper. A story that will surprise and delight all explorers. Archaeologists have found more than 10,000 ancient bamboo and wood inscriptions that are over 2,000 years old. These were original books of antiquity, and they were found in Yunnan, a Chinese province in the southwest. Have you ever seen bamboo books? These are such interesting and unique things that people used before the invention of paper. A wood for the creation of books began to be used much later. Most of the records found date back to the Han Dynasty, which is considered one of the most important in Chinese history. On the plates, archaeologists have found various texts about agriculture, medicine, as well as many administrative documents. Of particular interest to researchers were seal prints, because they tell us about the ancient kingdom of Dian, which was later annexed to the territory of the Han Dynasty. This indicates that ancient China was a country of multi-ethnic cultures. Among the texts, even parts of the Analects of Confucius, an important philosophical textbook on Confucianism, were found. So on these bamboo and wooden plates, you can find information about everything, from court documents to texts about transport and ethnic relations. Ruins of houses and roads were found at the same archaeological site, which indicates the life of the ancient inhabitants of the Yunnan region. Rare statue of Kahul. Unique statue found in Mexico. This is Kahul, the Mayan god of lightning and fertility. Archaeologists found it recently when they were building a railway for tourists, the Maya train. This road should be completed by 2024. The statue of Kahul is part of an urn found near one of the sections of the road. Kahul is often depicted with a head like a beast, with large eyes, a long snout, and serpentine legs that symbolize lightning bolts. Interestingly, Kahul's drawings are found in Mayan reliefs and in old books, but so far, only 3 statues of this god have been found. They are located in Guatemala in the city of Tikal. Therefore, this discovery in Mexico is a true luck. Experts looking for ancient objects in the area of the road construction have already made many discoveries. So far, they have found over 896,000 pottery, 491 bones, and nearly 49,000 structures or foundations. So the opening of the Kahul statue is not only interesting, but also a very important event. This allows scientists to learn more about the Maya and their ancient deity. Who knows what other secrets the ancient Maya hide from us? Finding in the desert of Saudi Arabia. Long time ago, long before the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge were built, people were creating amazing carvings of animals. Huge 3D drawings of camels and horses on rocks have been found in the desert of Saudi Arabia. At first, scientists thought they were 2,000 years old, but it turned out that they are even older than Stonehenge. All this happened in Neolithic times, when there were trees and lakes around. People had not yet tamed camels and may have hunted them, and the drawings on the rock are a kind of meeting place for ancient people. To create such images, people used flint tools and spent 10 to 15 days on each of them. The carved figures seem to be layered on top of each other, which indicates the complexity of their creation. Scholars initially made a mistake with the age of these drawings because dating stone carvings is not an easy task. However, after conducting various studies, they found out that the drawings are older than 8,000 years. This is much older than the 5,000-year-old Stonehenge. Thus, these ancient drawings of camels and horses in the desert are some of the oldest large-scale three-dimensional depictions of animals in the world. The most famous jester of the 16th century. Once upon a time in the 1540s, Jean-Antoine d'Angleray, nicknamed Chicot, was born in France. He was not from a wealthy family, but he was still able to study at the famous Parisian college. However, he loved the sword more than books. At first, Chicot served as a soldier for the Duke of Savoy, then became a courier and then worked for the French king Charles IX. When Charles died, Henry III ascended the throne. Chicot had a sharp tongue, so he quickly became one of the court jesters. The jesters were important people in the royal courts. They entertained and gave advice. For example, before Chicot, there was a famous jester Triboulet. Chicot not only joked, but also fought. He participated in the siege of La Rochelle and became a lieutenant of Henry III. Chicot was smart and funny. People loved him. He married Renée Bayard and they had 6 sons. After 10 years, Chicot became a real nobleman, but soon a civil war broke out in France and Chicot found himself next to the new king Henry IV. Together, they fought and won. Chicot is said to have died a funny and strange death. He captured enemy Henry de Chaligny and brought him to the king. However, Henry hit Chicot on the head and he soon died. However, no one knows for sure how it really happened. Perhaps Chicot simply died of his wounds, as befits a warrior jester. This happened in 1592. Ranemo runes, mystery or deceit? Have you ever heard of an ancient dam in Sweden adorned with Viking runes? It is said that these runes were created many centuries ago, but over time they were significantly erased and lost their readability. For a long time it was believed that their secrets were lost forever. However, in the 18th and 19th centuries, scientists again became interested in these ancient runes, although they could not make out their content. Icelandic archaeologist Finn Magnusson was one such explorer. He was a recognized expert in Old Norse literature and runes. Eventually, he was able to convince the Royal Danish Academy of Sciences and Letters to fund an expedition to study the Ranemo runes in 1834. When the expedition arrived, Magnusson announced his startling discovery. He had deciphered the runes. According to him, this is a poem praising King Harald Wartooth for his bravery at the Battle of the Broel. This news caused a storm of delight and was hailed as an archaeological triumph. But soon the outstanding Swedish chemist Jöns Jacob Berzelius decided to study these famous runes on his own. After researching, he made a shocking statement. The carved signs were not actually runes. They turned out to be natural cracks and abrasions in the stone. This scandal cast doubt on Magnusson's reputation and led to heated discussion in the scientific community. As a result, the history of the Ranemo runes remains a mystery. Someone believes that this is the lost text of an old poem, and someone is sure that these are just natural cracks in the stone. The most interesting thing is that scientists and historians still continue to argue about what is actually hidden behind this ancient dam. Thanks to cases such as Ranemo, modern archaeologists and researchers have become more careful in their conclusions and make sure to check information from several sources before claiming a great discovery. Nevertheless, the history of Ranemo can be a fascinating and useful lesson for young explorers and all those who are interested in archaeology and history. It reminds of the importance of critical thinking, skepticism, and the pursuit of truth. I think each of you in the city has similar stone dams and bridges on which ancient runes can be seen in the cracks. Pendant with the Mammoth, a mystery solved centuries later. In 1889, the American archaeologist Hilborn T. Cresson showed the world an unusual artifact, an ancient pendant carved from oak bark and decorated with an engraving of a mammoth. This jewelry was special because mammoths disappeared from North America more than 10,000 years ago. From the very beginning, there were doubts about its authenticity. Cresson stated that he found the pendant near the Delaware River 25 years ago, but couldn't explain why he was silent about this discovery for so long. He said that he did not understand the value of the pendant, which seemed strange to an archaeologist. Cresson was already known for his not-so-good deeds. He lost his job due to the theft of artifacts and selling them to collectors. As a result, the pendant was recognized as a fake, but no evidence of this was found, so it was forgotten for many years. However, in the 1970s, interest was renewed in the pendant, and it even graced the cover of Science magazine in May 1976. People began to believe in its authenticity again, and even suggested that the pendant could be up to 40,000 years old. The real truth about the artifact was established only in 1988, when radiocarbon analysis showed that the age of the pendant is only 1,100 years old, which determined its creation around 885 AD. Thus, the mystery of the mammoth pendant was solved centuries later, and this case became a reminder of the importance of a scientific approach and careful analysis in archaeology. On the other hand, although this pendant is not 10,000 years old, it can still be classified as an ancient artifact. Tiara of Scythophon, Deception of the Louvre. More than 100 years ago, the Louvre, which houses one of the greatest collections of artifacts, made a serious mistake. The story began on April Fool's Day, April 1st, 1896, when the Louvre announced the acquisition of an amazing artifact, the Tiara of Scythophon, the golden crown of the Scythian king of the 3rd century BC. Despite a large staff of experts who recognized the tiara as genuine, the British Museum and the Imperial Court Museum in Vienna refused to buy it. The Louvre paid 200,000 francs for the tiara, unaware that it was a fake. Soon, experts began to doubt the authenticity of the tiara. Among them was the German professor Adolf Furtwängler. The Louvre defended its purchase and accused critics of being hostile to the French. For 6 years, the museum stubbornly refused to admit its mistake. However, the news of the scandal reached Odessa, Ukraine, where Israel Rukhamovsky, the master who created this fake, lived. He stated that he was commissioned to make the tiara as a gift to an archaeologist friend, and couldn't imagine that his work would be passed off as a real artifact. In the end, the Louvre admitted the mistake. This story is a reminder of the importance of thorough examination, even for museums as respected as the Louvre, in order not to be questioned and not to lose reputation. And now just imagine how many fake exhibits from the ancient world are stored in our time in all museums of the world, and how many such Odessa masters created ancient crowns, swords, coins, and gold jewelry. Calaveras Skull, a false find. There have already been many deceptions associated with ancient skulls throughout history, and each skull has its own legend. Josiah Whitney was a famous American geologist who taught at Harvard University and chaired the California Geological Survey. However, his failure was to get involved in the Calaveras Skull scandal. Miners found the skull at a depth of 40 meters under a layer of lava. Archaeologist Whitney presented it in July 1866 as the oldest human remains ever found, about 1 million years old. A little later, there were doubts about the authenticity of the skull, but the archaeologists had a lot of supporters. Nearly 3 decades later, William Henry Holmes of the Smithsonian Institution examined the Calaveras skull and found modern features that indicated it was a forgery. Further investigation revealed that the skull had been planted by miners who wanted to play a trick on Whitney. The final proof was confirmed in 1992 when radiocarbon dating found the skull to be only 1,000 years old. This story is a reminder of the need to think critically and be able to collaborate with experts in various fields of knowledge. Archaeologists and scientists always want to single-handedly attribute all achievements to themselves. Therefore, having discovered another artifact, they are in no hurry to tell their colleagues about it, but immediately rush to tell the whole world that the find is genuine. Drake's Plate of Brass, a historical forgery. The next story is about a joke that went too far. Between 1577 and 1580, the British explorer Sir Francis Drake circumnavigated the world and, stopping in what was now California, left a copper plate at the site he named New Albion. This artifact has become a kind of a holy grail for historians studying the early colonization of America. In 1937, the American historian Herbert Eugene Bolton spoke about finding the plate. The California Historical Society then purchased the artifact for $3,500 and donated it to the Burcroft Library in Berkeley. At that time, some scientists expressed doubts about the authenticity of the plate, but Bolton and his colleagues stubbornly continued to insist on its authenticity. A few decades later, in the late 1970s, new research confirmed that the plate was fake. The brass plate was later revealed to be a runaway prank played by members of the historical E Campus Vitus fraternity, including Azra Dane, the alleged creator of the forgery. The fake was created to tease Bolton, who was also a member of the fraternity. Instead of revealing the truth, the conspirators decided to keep playing for fear of damage to their reputation and career. This story not only demonstrated the thoroughness of modern research in the search for truth, but also showed how complex and delicate the process of identifying and assessing the authenticity of historical artifacts can be. However, unlike other deceptive finds which had a much more devastating effect on the scientific community and worldview, Drake's brass plate was an important lesson for future generations of researchers. The next story will be about a mysterious mummy. Persian Princess, fake mummy or modern murder? In 2000, the Pakistani authorities purchased a mummy presented as a Persian princess and held a press conference to show everyone this unique find. It was assumed that the mummy was the daughter of King Xerxes I, dated to around 600 BC. The discovery sparkled an international dispute between Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan over who is the rightful owner of the mummy. However, after conducting real research, it became clear that the mummy is a fake. The coffin in which the mummy was located was made of wood, which was only 250 years old. The mummy itself was much younger, belonged to a 20-year-old woman, and was made just a few years ago. Thus, the study of the mummy became the investigation of a modern murder. The incident served as a reminder of the complexities involved in the antiques and fakes market, and the need for thorough research before an artifact is recognized as a genuine historical discovery. From this story, we can conclude that many mummies hide cases of real modern murders. Piltdown Man, the fake missing link. I myself have already talked about this find in my previous videos. In 1912, British amateur archaeologist Charles Dawson announced the discovery of skull fragments that were supposed to be the missing link between the ape and men. Reconstructed with the help of paleontologist Arthur Smith Woodward, the skull has been identified as Eanthropus dawsoni, or early Dawson man, from 500,000 years ago. The discovery was to become a world-class sensation and put an end to human evolution once and for all. However, in 1953, the scientific community concluded that Piltdown Man was a fake, created by combining human and ape bones. This discovery undermined the credibility of the scientific community and still serves as a reminder of the possible errors and fraud in archaeology. As for the identity of the perpetrator of the forgery, it is assumed that it could be Charles Dawson himself, but it was not possible to establish his participation in the hoax. The story of Piltdown Man remains a sad reminder that archaeologists can deliberately lie, and most importantly, create deliberately false ancient exhibits and mislead all of humanity for many years. Sarcophagus of Tarragona, a scam that deceived twice. In 1850, in Tarragona, Spain, workers discovered a marble sarcophagus with unusual images, which told the story of Hercules who discovered the Strait of Gibraltar. Local antiquarian and archaeologist Bonaventure Hernandez Isanawa claimed that the images showed a connection between Egypt and Spain about 3,600 years ago. Most scientists disagreed with his conclusions and rejected the sarcophagus as a fake. However, in 1916, the American archaeologist Arthur Frottingham accidentally used a fragment of images from the sarcophagus in his work, presenting it as authentic Phoenician iconography. This has led to repeated deception of the scientific community. In 1921, the French historian Paul Paris exposed the deception and again dismissed the sarcophagus as a parody of Egyptian art. The story of the Tarragona sarcophagus represents the dangers of fraud and wrong conclusions in archaeology. In this case, the deception was exposed, but this story tells us that the same fake find can deceive several times. Archaeoraptor, a forgery of the 21st century. The following story involves the well-known National Geographic. Archaeoraptor became famous in 1999 thanks to a National Geographic exclusive content that claimed to be the link between dinosaurs and birds. However, after only a few weeks, the magazine was forced to admit that the Archaeoraptor was a fake, consisting of the remains of various animals glued together by Chinese farmers. After this failure, the creature was nicknamed Piltdown Bird, in reference to the famous Piltdown Man forgery of the early 20th century. Bucket Crown and Unicorn. This story is connected with the notary Philip Houben, who was very fond of archaeology. He found an ancient burial with strange objects. It contained a skull, a copper band, and a copper shackle. Houben thought it was the grave of the prince and his crown, but then it turned out that in fact he found the metal parts of an old bucket. The second story is about the scientist Otto von Guericke. He found bones of various animals in a cave near Quedlinburg and assembled the skeleton of a unicorn from them. But then scientists realized that these were bones from mammoth, bears, and deer. The horn was part of a mammoth tusk, so the unicorn has remained a fairy tale animal, although its popularity has not yet decreased. And I will end this video with the last find for today, which turned out to be an unintentional deception. Nebraska Man, a mistake, not a scam. The Nebraska Man is an incident that took place in the US in 1922 and is similar to the Piltdown Man story, except that it was a mistake, not a hoax. Harold Cook, a ranger from Nebraska, discovered a tooth that was erroneously identified by Henry Fairfield Osborn, president of the American Museum of Natural History, as a hominine tooth. This led to the creation of the Nebraska Man concept. Over time, scientists discovered other skeletal fragments and determined that the tooth actually belonged to an extinct species of pig-like mammal, the peccary, and not a hominine. By 1927, the Nebraska Man idea was officially debunked. This case damaged the reputation of the archaeologists, but unlike the Piltdown Man, it was the result of a mistake, not a deliberate fraud. However, this error was used in discussions around the ape process in America and became an argument for creationists and other opponents of the theory of evolution. Creepy mosaic in Italy. The first find in this video will be a bit unusual. In Italy, archaeologists have found a villa where the ancient Roman emperors lived and found two mosaics with Medusa there. Medusa is the heroine of the Greek myth. She had hair made of snakes and her eyes turned people to stone. How this mythical character deserved to be depicted in a mosaic, I will try to figure it out. Archaeologists have discovered mosaics in the round room of the Antonine Villa, named after the Antonine dynasty that ruled the Roman Empire from 138 to 193 AD. In the image, Medusa looks into the distance. Mosaics of mythical creatures are located in two niches in the round room, one in the northwest and the other in the southeast. There are two more niches, but no similar images were found there. Scientists do not yet know what the room was used for and why there were images of Medusa. However, in the 2nd century, creature heads were a popular decoration in the Roman world, and from Italy, we will go to China to study the most ancient tools of labor. Ritual axe, 4,500 years old. In China, in the city of Wuxi, archaeologists have discovered an ancient ritual weapon, an engraved axe that is 4,500 years old. The axe belongs to the Lianzhu culture, one of the most developed cultures in China at that time. This culture lived in the Yangtze River Delta, but when the floods occurred, the people of Lianzhu were forced to leave their capital and settlements. This led to their complete extinction around 2300 BC. Scientists have found 329 stone tools, 73 stone and bone arrows, and many other ceramic and jade artifacts. The most interesting is the axe, on which images of tigers, patterns of clouds and birds are engraved on both sides. The axe was found on a sacrificial platform and shows signs of wear and damage. Scientists believe that the axe was not used in battles but in rituals and ceremonies to symbolize power. Liu Baoshan, head of the local archaeological institute, said the patterns on the axe were made with a harder stone tool. This is the first tiger-engraved axe found in the region. Now we will dive into history even deeper and find out what our ancestors ate more than 100,000 years ago. Giant snails. Scientists have discovered the earliest evidence that humans ate giant snails. In a cave in southern Africa, paleontologists have found fragments of the shells of large land snails, the approximate age of which is from 70,000 to 170,000 years. Scientists used to know that people were eating snails about 49,000 years ago in Africa and about 36,000 years ago in Europe, but these old shells showed signs of heating, possibly during cooking, and the scientists concluded that people were eating snails much earlier than they thought. The find suggests that our ancestors who lived in the cave consciously ate snails. Snail meat is highly nutritious, rich in protein, iron, potassium, calcium, and omega-3 fatty acids. It is assumed that the ancient giant snail shells belonged to the ancestors of modern ones, which were the size of a human hand and weighed more than 1 kilogram. In other words, there was a lot of good quality meat in the snails. People now eat snails all over the world, including the Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, Northeast India, Nepal, and South America. Prior to this study, archaeologists believed that people began to regularly eat snails and other small animals only after the end of the last ice age, but new data refute this view. In the Border Cave in southern Africa, numerous archaeological excavations have been carried out. Fragments of shells were also found there, which had colors from beige to brown and gray. Since heating can change the color of the shell, the variety of shades indicates that they have been exposed to fire. To test this theory, scientists heated modern-day shell fragments of giant land snails to temperatures ranging from 200 to 550 degrees Celsius for varying periods of time from 5 minutes to 36 hours. They observed changes in the color of the shells, weight loss, breakage, and changes in the chemical composition of the pieces. The color of the new shells changed to white or gray, like some ancient fragments, and also heating caused the formation of small cracks similar to those on old shells. The highly digestible fatty protein from snails may have been as well an important food source for the elderly and young children who cannot chew solid foods. From delicious snails, we will again go to Asia, where an unusual tomb awaits us. Ancient Empire Tomb. The history of China is unique and very interesting. It seems to me that much more needs to be said about this amazing country, so that everyone associates archaeology not only with ancient Egypt. So, a few years ago, archaeologists found an ancient tomb in China built during the Jin Empire. This empire was located on the territory of northern China and today's far east of Russia. Workers discovered the stone tomb in 2019, 650 kilometers from Beijing. Archaeologists have learned that the tomb is decorated with figures of lions, sea anemones, flowers, and guardian spirits, one figure of a woman, the other of a man. Inside the tomb are bricks that look like carved wood, possibly without paint. The remains of 3 people were found in the tomb, 2 adults, 56 years old, and 1 child, 8 years old. In the same place, researchers found a land tag with inscriptions showing that the tomb was built between 1190 and 1196. At that time, this region was under the rule of the Jin state. The imperial family came from the Jurchens, a semi-nomadic people of northeastern China. Today, their relatives are Manchus and Evenks. In 1207, the population of the state was 53 million people. Information about the age of the tomb will help date other structures in the region. From China, we will go to Israel, where another terrible burial awaits us. Funerary decorations of a girl. Archaeologists studied finds made on Mount Scopus in Israel and found a lat coffin with valuables such as gold earrings, a hair clip, a gold pendant, gold beads, carnelian, and glass beads. These pieces of jewelry were found by archaeologist Yael Adler back in 1971, but have only now been researched and published. A team of archaeologists studied the newly found gems. They considered a very valuable find. On part of the jewelry, symbols of the Roman goddess of the moon, the patroness of young girls, were found. If a girl died early, jewelry with symbols of the goddess was placed in the grave for protection in the afterlife. Other gold earrings and jewelry were found during excavations on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem in 1975. Such burials and decorations are well known in the Roman world and allow one to draw conclusions about the population of Judea at that time. After the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and the expulsion of the Jews, the city was settled by settlers from the Roman Empire. The burial of a young girl with her jewelry is a touching archaeological find. We can imagine how her parents or relatives put these valuables in her grave, hoping that they will help protect the girl in another world. Despite the passage of centuries, we can all understand these feelings of loss and the desire to protect your child no matter what. Thus, these archaeological finds help scientists to better understand the history and culture of the population of Judea during the period of the late Roman Empire. These decorations and burials of young girls testify to the mixed population made up of immigrants from different parts of the Roman Empire and their beliefs and rituals which they brought to the life of the city. The oldest Scottish tartan. A piece of cloth found in the Scottish Highlands in the early 1980s is the oldest surviving tartan dating back to the 16th century, a new study suggests. Tartan is a traditional Scottish plaid fabric associated with ancestral groups known as clans. The pattern was named the Glen Affric tartan after the village where it was found. The tartan is perfectly preserved thanks to the fact that it was buried in a peat bog with a low oxygen content. In Scotland, old textiles are very rare because of the soil, which is not conducive to their preservation. To determine the age of the Glen Affric tartan, the Scottish Tartan Authority commissioned dye analysis and radiocarbon testing. The researchers examined the 4 colors used and found no man-made or semi-synthetic materials indicating a date earlier than 1750s. Radiocarbon testing has indicated a period of tartan creation from 1500 to 1655. At this time, the Stuart monarchs were on the Scottish throne. Mary, Queen of Scots, and her father, James V. Tartan is not associated with high status, but rather with working-class outdoor wear. Non-noble items from the 16th century are quite rare, so this piece is an amazing find. It is believed that the oldest tartan discovered in Scotland, the Falkirk tartan, dated to the 3rd century, has a simpler jacket structure than the Glen Affric tartan. However, in this case, only a small fragment of it was found. Sanctuary of the God of War. In France, archaeologists have found a sanctuary dedicated to the god Mars from the 4th century AD. Next to it, a Roman necropolis was found with funerary items about 1,500 years old. Excavations are taking place near La Chapelle des Fougères, where traces of a necropolis and a sanctuary were found back in 1984, and archaeological research began in 2018. The sanctuary is probably dedicated to Mars, the Roman god of war. Dozens of swords and spears, presumably ritual, and a small figurine of a deity were found at the excavation site. Mars was at first the god of fertility and nature, but later became the god of war like the Greek Ares. Archaeologists have found the remains of furniture, brooches, military items, and a set of coins. The sanctuary is believed to have been in use during the early Roman period, and it was abandoned in the 4th century AD. Near the sanctuary, dwellings with household items and ceramic utensils were found. In addition, a Roman necropolis with approximately 40 burials from the late Roman period up to 5th century has been excavated. Funerary objects were found there: silver bracelets, hairpins, buckles, glass and pearl beads, ceramics, and footprints. In one burial, a dagger and horse harness with iron and bronze decorations were found. All found artifacts were sent to storage for further study. And the next find is interesting because we'll find out when drugs became popular in Europe. Ancient hair. This terrible epidemic has a very long history. Various drugs have been popular for thousands of years, and in those days, millions of people around the world died from this poison. Archaeologists have found the oldest case of drug use in Europe on the island of Minorca, near Spain. This man's hair is over 3,000 years old. Scientists studying the cave of Ascarach discovered that our ancestors performed a strange ritual. The dead man's hair was cut off, dyed red, and placed in small boxes made of horn and wood. The researchers analyzed the hair using sophisticated methods and found alkaloids, scopolamine, and ephedrine, substances that cause hallucinations. It's no secret that researchers can detect drugs in human hair and nails even after months and years. Scientists think that ancient people used vision-inducing plants such as mandrake, henbane, and datura. In addition, they ate ephedra with ephedrine, a stimulant. Now we can say with certainty that psychostimulants were popular in Europe more than 3,000 years ago, and most likely created a big problem for humanity even then. Mummy of a mysterious creature. There are still many secrets on our planet that continuously offer archaeologists and scientists new mysteries. So in Yakutia, in Russia, they accidentally discovered an unusual find. So far, archaeologists together with scientists are trying to figure out who they found there: a dinosaur, a previously unknown species of animal, or maybe a Siberian chupacabra. The story began when workers brought soil from a local diamond mine. One of the workers noticed a strange creature among the stones. It turned out to be a mummy. At first, he thought it was a small dinosaur because workers had already found fossilized ostrich eggs here. The find turned out to be in a layer of diamond sands dating back to the Mesozoic era, 50 to 160 million years old. It could be a real sensation. Thanks to the cold Siberian climate and permafrost, the remains of this mysterious creature are perfectly preserved. Workers handed over the mummy to scientists who at first could not determine what kind of animal it was. They took a picture of it and sent the photo to colleagues. A day later, it turned out that this was not a dinosaur, but an ordinary sable. This mammal resembles a small dexterous bear with a long body and sharp teeth. Thus, the find was relatively fresh. But scientists still cannot understand how the sable got in the multi-million-dollar soil. It is very likely that the animal could crawl into a hole and fall into a deep crevice where it turned into a mummy. Although this mummy did not turn out to be a dinosaur but just a sable, this story will help people realize that there are still many unknowns on our planet. Who knows, maybe one day the workers will really discover a genuine fossilized dinosaur mummy, or even something more unusual and mysterious. In the meantime, we will go to ancient Egypt. 12 severed hands. A very unusual and creepy find in Egypt has frightened archaeologists. Archaeologists have found evidence that the ancient Egyptians cut off their hands. They found severed right palms in 3 pits of a Hyksos palace in northeastern Egypt. The Hyksos were the first foreigners to rule Egypt. The palace was built around 400 BC. Judging by the way the hands look, they belong to 12 adults, including 11 men and possibly 1 woman. The researchers noticed that the hands were cut off carefully and placed in the pit with open fingers. There have been many cases in our history when people lost their fingers or hands due to theft. Scientists believe that in this case, the hands were cut off not as a punishment, but rather as part of a ritual that took place in the palace. Severed hands may have been prizes during a public event. In the old days, it was believed that hands had magical properties and could help the dead in the afterlife. Therefore, they were brought as a gift to the gods. Prior to this discovery, the story of ancient Egyptian chopping off hands was known only from inscriptions on tombs and temple reliefs, but now scientists have found real evidence of this practice. To be honest, you don't always want archaeologists to find confirmation of ancient texts. Some moments of history let them remain on paper. Zodiac signs in ancient Egypt. Experts from the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, together with archaeologists from the German University of Tübingen, were working on the restoration of the Asnat Temple and found zodiac signs on its ceiling. The temple is about 2,200 years old, and for a long time, the paintings were hidden under a thick layer of dirt, soot, and bird manure. The ancient city of Asna is located in southern Egypt and was one of the centers of Coptic Christianity. The ancient city was called Letopolis, and the Temple of Asna, also known as the Temple of Khnum, was built here 2,000 years ago. The temple was dedicated to the Egyptian god creator and keeper of fertility. The researchers found on the ceiling of the temple images of the zodiac signs, planets, stars, and constellations on a pale blue background, symbolizing the sky. Such ruins in Egyptian temples are rare and unique, since the system of zodiac signs came to Egypt from Babylon thanks to the Greeks. In addition to the signs of the zodiac, archaeologists found ruins of hybrid creatures in the temple, such as ram-headed snakes, dog-headed birds with 4 wings, snake man, and many other strange snake-like creatures. The restoration made the reliefs brighter and more distinct, but the work is still ongoing. Large Neolithic settlement in Germany. Archaeological excavations in the city of Dobeln, located in the state of Saxony in Germany, led to the discovery of a large settlement of the early Neolithic. The excavation began in October last year, when construction of an amusement park was scheduled to begin on the site. As a result of the work of a group of 18 archaeologists, a settlement was discovered where dozens of houses stood 7,000 years ago. The 10-hectare site contains many pits for poles, allowing professionals to reconstruct floor plans. The largest house that was discovered was 30 meters long and 8 meters wide. Currently, archaeologists continue excavations and have already found several thousand artifacts, including pottery shards, flint tools, as well as fragments of clay figurines and idols. Scientists prepared meatballs from mammoth meat. Artificial meat company Vao has recreated a prehistoric mammoth meatball. The meat was derived from available DNA and from an elephant, the closest living relative of the mammoth. As a result, the meat was grown from 20 billion cells and turned into minced meat. This is a unique product created from cells of non-traditional species. Although scientists think that meat could be tasty, they are afraid to eat it, fearing that the ancient protein will be deadly. The mammoth meat farming project took a couple of weeks. Vao originally planned to recreate dodo meat, but did not find a suitable DNA sequence. The main goal of the company is to demonstrate the potential of biotechnology in artificial meat as an alternative to animal slaughter. According to the company, large-scale slaughter of animals is one of the causes of global warming. The environmental impact of cultured meat production will be substantially lower than that of traditional meat production. When growing artificial meat, 745% less resources are involved. Some companies such as Good Meat and Upside Foods are already approved in the US. Good Meat Farm chicken is also sold in shops in Singapore. The mystery of the man of Altamura. In southern Italy, near the city of Altamura, an amazing event took place. The man fell into a crevice and fell from a height of 15 meters onto a pile of washed-out earth and animal remains. He survived, but suffered severe injuries, including a broken arm and a damaged shoulder blade. The man was locked in a cave where he tried to find a way out, but in the end he became exhausted and sat in a far corner. Speleologists found him there in 1993, but unfortunately, help came too late, after about 150,000 years. The bones of a man were imprisoned in a stone trap in the outgrowth of a stalagmite, and so far it has not been possible to extract them without damage. Disputes arose immediately after the discovery regarding the dating and species of this person. Some considered him the first archaic Homo sapiens in Europe, others saw him as a transitional link between the Heidelberg man and the Neanderthal. Ultimately, most anthropologists identified him as a classic Neanderthal. In 2015, scientists conducted uranium-thorium dating of calcite on bones and found that calcite formed between 187,000 and 128,000 years ago. DNA fragments were also found that fit into the range of genetic variability of the Neanderthals of Europe. This finally put an end to the debate about the species identity of the man from Altamura. He turned out to be a Neanderthal, and his skeleton became the best preserved Neanderthal skeleton in Europe. Today, scientists are working on a method for extracting a find from a stone trap without the risk of damaging it. In 2016, a reconstruction of the appearance of the Altamura man was created based on a laser scan of the skull. The uniqueness of the find lies not only in the amazing preservation of the skeleton, but also in the fact that this is the first complete Neanderthal found in Italy. This is of great importance for understanding the spread of Neanderthals across Europe and their migration routes. Studying the bones of Altamura man reveals a lot about the life and way of thinking of Neanderthals. For example, scientists found that he had a broken shoulder blade, which may indicate that he was involved in a fight or clash with other people. In addition, cavers noticed that the Neanderthal's arms and legs were unusually long and strong, indicating that he was adapted to hard physical work and life in harsh environments. Village where Egyptian tomb builders lived. Near the popular Valley of the Kings, where the ancient Egyptian rulers found peace, there is a lesser-known location, the village of Deir el-Medina. This is the place where the builders lived who for decades created the tombs, including the tomb of Tutankhamun and about 100 other tombs. They also carried out the maintenance of the same tombs. The ruins of Deir el-Medina are located on the other side of the Nile opposite Luxor, and for 3 millennia no one has lived in this settlement. The village became famous in the early 20th century, and interest in Deir el-Medina increased after Tutankhamun's tomb was found by Howard Carter. Two Egyptologists, the Frenchman Bernard Briere and his student Jaroslav Cherny from the Czech Republic, created a detailed report on life in Deir el-Medina, which covers about 400 years. This is how long the village existed. Deir el-Medina was abandoned in the 11th century BC due to the looting of the tombs of the pharaohs, the reduction in food supplies, and the instability of life. But thanks to these ruins hidden in the sands, scientists have been able to describe the life of the working class of ancient Egypt. In its best times, the settlement consisted of 68 brick houses standing on a stone foundation. The houses were painted white and the windows in each dwelling were built high to reduce the amount of sun that entered the house. Usually in such a building, there were 5 rooms, and in terms of area, it occupied about 70 square meters. It is believed that the village was built specifically at a distance from other settlements in order to keep the skill of building tombs a secret. As already mentioned, the main occupation of the inhabitants of Deir el-Medina was the construction of tombs for the pharaohs and their loved ones. In addition, they were engaged in other crafts such as making jewelry, household items, clothing, etc. Artisans were organized into guilds, which were involved in setting the rules and norms of production, as well as resolving disputes between craftsmen. Statue of the powerful pharaoh of ancient Egypt. During excavations at the Materia Temple of the Sun in Heliopolis, archaeologists discovered several statues, including a sculpture of Ramesses II, the powerful ruler of ancient Egypt. The temple was founded by Ramesses II, so its pedestal was immediately found in the temple. In addition, statues of other pharaohs such as Ramesses IX, Horemheb, and Psammethicus II have been found. Archaeologists have also discovered a sculpture of a pharaoh whose identification has yet to be made. This statue has been dated to about 4,000 years ago. The Sun Temples were built between 1550 and 1070 BC and were dedicated to the god Ra. In ancient times, people believed that the sculptures of gods and goddesses, as well as the pedestals of the pharaohs, were vessels of supernatural power. They were ordered by kings and pharaohs and were considered the earthy incarnation of the god Ra and were responsible for the maintenance of the sanctuaries. Ancient ziggurat, 5,000 years old. Sialk is an archaeological site located on the territory of the city of Kashan in Iran. Previously, locals considered it a cursed city and tried to avoid it. However, a severe flood that occurred in 1930 helped reveal the history of the hills beginning around the 3rd millennium BC. The building itself is a ziggurat, a stepped religious building in the ancient Mesopotamia made mainly of clay. Ziggurats were the first centers of science in the history of mankind, where the priests observed the heavenly bodies and the life of the universe. It is believed that the oldest ziggurat is located in the suburbs of the city of Kashan in central Iran and was built around the 3rd millennium BC. After the flood in 1930, a group of researchers led by French archaeologists of Ukrainian origin Roman Gershman went to excavate in Iran. The results of their labors did not attract the attention of the then authorities until 2001. Researcher Gershman estimates that this ancient civilization is over 10,000 years old. The structure is in poor condition, like many other ancient ruins in Iran. Sialk was built by Elam, one of the most ancient civilizations in history, located in the southwest of Iran. Elam built 4 ziggurats, including Sialk. During the excavations, various artifacts were found, including ceramics, glass, metal objects, jewelry, and coins, which testified to the richness and diversity of the ancient culture of Sialk. Ancient texts were also found in the Elamite language, which was common in the region for several millennia BC. One of the most interesting artifacts found at Sialk is a cast image of the goddess Nana, which is thought to date from the 3rd to 2nd millennium BC. Nana was the goddess of fertility and motherhood, and her cult was widespread in ancient Mesopotamia and Iran. In addition, a large collection of stone sculptures was found in Sialk, which represent images of animals, people, and gods. They were made in various styles and techniques, which testifies to the richness and diversity of the artistic culture of ancient Iran. Golden Tomb in Armenia. The archaeological find Golden Tomb in Matamor, Armenia, is striking in its uniqueness. In the tomb were found the remains of presumably a husband and wife, as well as gold necklaces, beads, pendants, and ceramic vessels. It is surprising that the tomb has not been robbed for centuries. Matamor is an ancient settlement in the Armenian highlands where the oldest gold jewelry in Armenia was found. The necklaces date back to the reign of Ramesses II in Egypt, testifying to the cultural influence of that era. The death of the inhabitants of the tomb remains a mystery, and scientists plan to conduct additional research. Archaeologists will continue to work in Matamor to find more artifacts and uncover the secrets of the ancient city and its inhabitants. Perhaps the death of spouses is associated with religious or ritual customs. The study and preservation of archaeological finds help us understand our history and shed light on the customs of our ancestors. This is important for the preservation of the cultural heritage of the people of the world. In general, the discovery of the Golden Tomb in Matamor is of great importance for archaeology and history. The jewelry and artifacts found testify to the craftsmanship and cultural diversity of that era. Additional research may help solve the mystery of the death of a married couple and reveal more secrets about the ancient city and its inhabitants. 2,000 sheep heads. An archaeological mission led by York University was excavating the Temple of Ramses II in Abydos, Egypt, where 2,000 ram heads dating back to the Ptolemaic period were found. In addition, the team found the remains of various animals such as sheep, wild goats, dogs, cows, gazelles, and mongooses in a room of the temple complex, which were believed to be sacrifices in honor of Ramses II 1,000 years after his death. Abydos is one of the most ancient cities of Upper Egypt, with a history that goes back to the first pre-dynastic period, that is, until the middle of the 4th millennium BC. The city is located on the left western bank of the Nile and was the site of many ancient temples, including el-Kab, the royal necropolis where early pharaohs rest, and the Temple of Seti I, containing an inscription known as the Abydos King List, a timeline of the dynastic pharaohs of ancient Egypt from Menes to Seti I's father, Ramses I. During the 19th dynasty, Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great, built a temple complex dedicated mainly to Osiris and Seti I. Ramses II is considered one of the most famous pharaohs of the New Kingdom, which was itself the most powerful period of ancient Egypt. The temple was decorated with several achievements from his reign, including scenes from the Battle of Kadesh. Statue of Venus in an ancient dump. In France, at a Roman-era garbage dump located in the city of Rennes, in the northwest of the country, artifacts were found, among which were figurines of the goddess Venus, a pottery, coins, and pins for cloth. The city of Rennes was founded by the Romans in the 1st century AD, and there was a quarry where the Romans mined building material. Later, the quarry was repurposed into landfill, where many artifacts up to 1,800 years old were found. One of the statuettes depicts Venus the progenitor with a torso draped with cloth, and the other statuette is Venus Anendiomen. The goddess is naked and with her right hand squeezes water out of her hair. Venus became associated with emperors and was often a symbol of Roman power. The scientists also discovered a 17th century underground water pipe that supplied Ran with water. Further excavations will reveal more about the mining methods and management of the site during the Gallo-Roman period. And to learn more about the new finds of archaeologists and the ancient world, subscribe to our channel and write kind comments under the video. It helps in the development of the channel. Thanks for your views, bye everyone!